in conventional medicine, you see a different doctor for every different body system. But what we're forgetting in the conventional world is that at the cellular level, our physiology, all of these systems are connected. We ignore that, and it doesn't make sense. So functional medicine helps practitioners see where everything is connected. I've walked people through this. They do great.
Yeah.
Nobody fails.
Yeah.
You find things to eat.
Yeah.
It is not as hard as it seems on paper.
Yeah.
When you know what's causing your problems, then you can continue to live your life in a smarter way.
Yeah. It's changed our lives.
Welcome to Renovating the Soul. I'm your host, Alexandria Robinson, and this is a podcast about the real, unglamorous work of becoming. The work that actually requires something from you. Hard questions, honest answers, and the willingness to look at the foundation you were handed and decide what you want to build on it. That's what we do here. So wherever you're coming from today, I'm glad you're in it with me. Let's get into today's conversation.
Today is a very special episode as it is our first guest episode. Joining me today, I have Dr. Shalli Deyo. She is going to be diving into functional health, the elimination diet, how our bodies work connected to our minds, how it's really the whole system. You guys are so in for a treat. Please sit back and enjoy. But before you do, let me read you her bio so you know who she is. Shalli, who gave me permission to call her that, is a mom of two boys, ages 17 and 20. And she has been a pharmacist for over 20 years. While overcoming many health challenges within her family, she found a path to functional medicine. Shalli became certified in 2023 and started her practice, Functional Pharmacist Northwest, in 2024. She now works with individuals and more frequently small groups to help people change their health trajectory. She gives free monthly talks and has a passion for educating people so they can truly understand why things are going wrong in their body. You all, this episode is so amazing. I hope you sit back and enjoy. Thank you so much for being here today, Shalli. I'm really, really excited for our conversation. Just so you all know, we're going to start off with talking about Shalli's journey, and then we'll get into defining some terms, and then we'll talk about how she and I know each other, and then we'll start to get more into some topics and some questions that a lot of my listeners have asked about this journey, or people may have who are coming up on this for the first time. So we're going to dive in at Renovating the Soul. I really want to know about our guests, who they are, before we talk about what they do. And so if you could tell us more just about your story, how you got where you are, whatever that looks like and whatever you'd want to include.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. So my story starts with, being a kid. And all I cared about was being a mom. I didn't care what I did. I went to college. I played soccer in college and got a biology degree and never really cared what I was going to do with it, but I needed to do something with that. So, landed in pharmacy, and I didn't like it from the very beginning.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But I knew that it would provide me the lifestyle that I want. I could make enough money to take care of myself if I needed to. I could work part-time because I wanted to have kids. And so I just stuck with it because it was a good career for a mom. And so I think that being my foundation, when my kids were sick, is what changed everything. Their dad was also sick, had a lot of health conditions. He's also a pharmacist. And so we were very bought into the conventional medical path. And so then when my kids were little and they had issues, I think my oldest son, he was born with eczema. I mean, straight out of the womb, eczema. And, you're given topical corticosteroid creams to put on their baby skin. And I never liked that. It didn't feel good. I know what that's doing. It's suppressing the immune system. It's getting into the bloodstream. But he had eczema, and that's what you do.
Yeah.
And then it was when he was about 6 months old, and we introduced a little bit of dairy mixed in some formula to breast milk. And he had an immediate reaction to the dairy.
Oh, interesting.
And so then I had to cut all dairy out of what I was eating because I was nursing. And it was really devastating at the time. But his eczema went away.
Oh, interesting.
And that was the first time that I felt angry about our medical system because nobody mentioned that. Nobody said, hey, if you cut out dairy, this might not be an issue and you might not have to put these drugs on his baby skin.
Yeah.
So that was my first introduction to, anger and feeling lied to. That it just kept going. When he was a year old, he ended up with a peanut allergy. He had a lot of inflammation, seasonal allergies, asthma, reactive airway disease. He'd get wheezy around cats and things. And his dad also had these conditions. And so we're like, well, it's genetic and there's nothing you can do. But things just kept escalating. And you just feel bad as a mom and in healthcare and you're medicating your kid and it never feels good. And then my younger son was born and all of his issues were more they were different and more in your face and required procedures.
Okay.
There was a period of time where he wouldn't eat. His growth chart had flatlined. And so I was bringing him in for weight checks weekly because he wouldn't eat. He wasn't growing. This was when he was about a year and a half old. And during that period of time, I was crying every day. And I'm not a crier. And but it just broke my heart because I didn't know what was wrong.
Yeah.
And what conventional medicine was doing for us. They were giving us these very high calorie boost sort of meal supplements. What they give to cancer patients is what I was trying to give him.
And how old was he at this time?
About a year and a half.
Wow.
And it wasn't working. He was just vomiting this stuff up. He wasn't eating. And now, looking back, that one of the first ingredients is high fructose corn syrup on those things. It's just garbage. No wonder he was rejecting it. But at the time, I didn't know. He was the reason I chose not to have a third kid. I always wanted a third kid.
Okay.
My husband and I were both middle children.
Okay.
And when you have sick kids, it changes everything. And I just didn't know how to help them.
Yeah.
Luckily, the idea that foods can cause inflammation came across my path, and I really grabbed onto that and immediately saw improvements once we changed what we were doing at home, what we were feeding them, cleaned up the food. That, of course, led to, I became really passionate about this information and dove into all of it and learned a lot about the gut microbiome and how that plays a role in the immune system. And over the course of the next decade, I watched miracles happen in my family. We had a crazy amount of different health conditions between the three of them, and they all just melted away over time.
Wow.
And it was incredible.
Yeah.
And so, it took something big for me to pull my head up and see a different direction. And then understanding, wow, what I have a doctorate in drugs, and they're not working. They're not helping people. This helps people. And so, of course, I felt a pull to functional medicine. I found people in the functional medicine world, and I never really understood what I could do with it. And so I kept pushing it away for years. I would push it away. What am I going to do? I'm going to start a new career. I have a, high-paying career. My husband at the time, he wanted us to retire early. So what am I going to do? Start something new. And so I kept pushing it away until, I hit a place in my life where I was just willing to trust what I was feeling. The drive within me was pretty strong to do something in functional medicine, not knowing what I could do with it, but just trusting doors would open. I'm just going to move in this direction and help people. And so I got my functional medicine certification. And what I love is that I was able to create something that I felt would work for people because, I see the struggles. I see that people need a little bit of hand-holding.
Yeah.
They
A lot of
need,
hand-holding.
people, this is not intuitive. It's a totally different direction. They're hearing things they've never heard before. And so I was able to create a program that I think really helps. I'm sort of bridging people from conventional world to this whole different world.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So can you give a timeline? So your babies are little, because your two kids are about 3 years apart.
2.5 years.
Okay, so 2.5 years apart. And so they're around what age did you start to see the...
So my youngest, Silas, he was a year and a half when he wasn't eating and he wasn't growing.
Okay.
And he wasn't developing language. He wasn't hearing. His tonsils were so swollen, they were touching in the back of his throat, which created sleep apnea. My older son, I considered his stuff more normal.
Yeah.
And so, we focused on Silas first, and his stuff reversed quickly. And then it was when Vaughn was in second grade, we looked at a stool test and realized he was on a path. He had inflammatory bowel markers. And so he was on this path to inflammatory bowel disease, which just threw me because I didn't see these normal conditions as leading to something so serious. And I know, being a pharmacist, I know what that path looks like. The medication path for inflammatory bowel disease is pretty sad and not what I want for my kid. Right. And so I became very motivated to change things and decrease the inflammation in their bodies. And the other thing is, kids with peanut allergies, they're more likely to die from a peanut exposure if they have a lot of inflammation in their body to begin with. And so I knew that also would be the best way to help him when he has accidental peanut exposures. Yeah. I can calm down the inflammation in his body so that he's more likely to live. And I mean that, when you're a mom, anything you can do to help your child.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So those were my driving factors.
Yeah. And so then you have your degree in pharmacy, and at what point or how far after that did you finally get the functional health certification?
I've been a pharmacist for 20 years.
Okay.
And I was living this life for about 10 years.
Okay.
And then decided, so it took me 10 years to make this decision. I'm just going to do it. Yeah. I'm just going to get the certification and see what happens.
Yeah. I hear you talk about your babies, and I think about the changes in the medical field just between my 4 kids. From Kal-El is 7, and by the time I had Zeus, who is 5, they had already been telling us different things. And so when Kal-El was 7, they were telling us, don't give them a lot of foods at one time. They were saying only introduce one food at a time, just in case he has an allergy or he's allergic to something. By the time I had Zeus, they were saying, you want to introduce more than, one, because they found out that a lot of the allergies are happening, now correct me if I'm wrong, because they're not getting exposed to these things. So then they were telling me, no, you need to expose them. And I'm like, by the time I had Apollos, it was different. By the time I had I'm like, what is happening? So when I hear you say that, I'm like, yeah, it's very interesting to see those minor changes. And also that hesitation, though, because my mom had me way back when, and when I'm trying to introduce these things or these new ideas, what the doctors are saying, it's still very much like, no, you don't want to do that. Like, no, you don't. And I'm like, you don't know what to listen to is kind of what I'm getting at with what you experience with your children. And I know that I have a lot of listeners who are parents, and that being your foundation is just so interesting to me because I know we've all been there with things. I'm thinking of things that my kids have now that I'm like, oh my gosh, is it connected to what they like? You know, my brain is going there. So yeah.
And that, I watched because, I saw the eczema go away, cutting out dairy. Now I'm a pharmacist and I'm talking to patients and dealing with parents with little kids who are getting corticosteroids for their eczema. And so I would float this idea out there because pediatricians were not, back, 20 years ago, they were not telling people this.
Yeah.
They are now. But over the years, I would watch because we can get into medical charts and stuff. And I would look and it wasn't mentioned until about, I don't even know exactly the year, but I mean, it was probably 10 years later where I first saw in chart notes where they were like, you could try cutting out certain foods. But so then as the pharmacist, I would go up there and consult patients and say, you might consider trying to eliminate certain types of food.
Yeah.
But even now, I know so much more than I did then because it isn't just about elimination. It's about healing the body so that you can tolerate the food.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have these reactions to food.
Absolutely. So let's actually get into defining some terms so that you all and we can also be on the same page with exactly what we're talking about. And I did do some of my research and making sure that I understood that the mitochondria health, right, the energy, the gut microbiome, things that you've already mentioned, because you mentioned inflammation. And I know that's a big one that I've noticed in people, but we're going to get to that in a little bit. But in layman's terms, or as simple as you can make it, what is functional health and how is it different from what most people experience at a conventional doctor?
It's really the lens that you're looking through. So when you have, let's say your blood pressure increases and you go to your doctor, they're going to give you a medication to bring down your blood pressure. So they're putting a Band-Aid on the symptom. But with functional medicine, we're going to try to get to, well, why is your blood pressure increasing? And so it's looking at what's causing the problem and asking the question why. So, in conventional medicine, you see a different doctor for every different body system. So you're going to see the cardiologist for your heart issues and the GI doctor for your bowel issues and the endocrinologist for your hormone issues, and on it goes. But what we're forgetting in the conventional world is that at the cellular level, our physiology, all of these systems are connected. There is so much cellular signaling that it crosses all of our body systems, and somehow we ignore that, and it doesn't make sense. So functional medicine helps practitioners see where everything is connected. And so looking at the cellular health, mitochondria is the fuel for the cell. And if the mitochondria, it requires specific nutrients to produce energy. So we're looking at like B vitamins, selenium, magnesium, coenzyme Q10, basic nutrients for that cell to have energy production. And then once the cell has the energy to work correctly, then the organ that's made up of trillions of cells can function properly. And then that body system can function properly. So if at its base, we're nutrient deficient, and maybe that's because of the state of our gut and we're unable to break down and absorb nutrients properly. If that's at the root, that's why the mitochondria aren't getting the proper energy. And then that's why the organs and the whole body system can't function properly. When you look at it that way, then you're getting to the foundations of cellular health.
Yeah.
And then all your body systems start to function as they should. We have so many innate healing mechanisms in our body, but we have to have our body in the right place in order for those to be working.
Yeah. Can you expand on that last part really like a little more? Because I did an episode already about broken souls, broken bodies. What I realized through research before we even came across functional health, I realized that a lot of ailments that people have are because of things that are happening, not necessarily health-wise, but stress or other factors or that can physically manifest. But one of the things that I touch on in there is that our bodies are capable of helping us if we let them. And so I think it's so interesting that you said that, like, we have the innate healing capabilities within us, but other things have to be functioning in order for that to happen. So can you just expand on that a little more?
Yeah. So, I mean, let's take stress, for example. This world we live in we are inundated with stress.
Yes.
If it's not, directly our work causing stress, it's our parents are aging, it's our kids are crazy busy.
Yeah.
We prioritize work over family time. We don't sleep, we have physical stress because the food we're taking in is not fueling our bodies. There's all kinds of stressors. We're connected to the entire world. That's not fun.
Yeah.
Not fun. We're comparing ourselves to everybody through social media. We have all kinds of stress. When we are in a stress state, we have cortisol, the stress hormone that increases. And there's a lot of normal body functions that happen with high cortisol that are life-saving. It's there for us to survive.
Yes.
But if we never get out of that stress state, if we never calm and turn on the parasympathetic nervous system. So the parasympathetic is the rest and digest mode. When we can calm our nervous system, we start producing pancreatic enzymes and stomach acid and the digestive juices we need to break down our food properly and absorb nutrients. And so, that's foundational for fueling our cells.
Yeah.
But because of this crazy stressful state we're in majority of the time, we aren't healing. We have to be in the parasympathetic resting mode to stimulate autophagy and mitophagy. And autophagy is our body's ability to renew new cells. We get rid of the old, there's misfolded proteins and our body will get rid of them and create new. Same with the old mitochondria. Mitochondria produces energy. We have so much fatigue in our world. And it's because our mitochondria are not working. And so if we put ourselves in a decreased inflammation state of calm, then we will start getting rid of old inefficient mitochondria and create new, but we have a hard time getting out of that stress state. And sometimes it is, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that have severe childhood trauma. And that keeps us in a cell danger mode. And this is subconscious, and so sometimes you're doing all the right things, but you don't heal, you don't respond to protocols. And that's when you have to look at your nervous system. And if your nervous system cannot get out of the fight or flight cell danger mode, you can't heal. And so maybe what you need to do is work on, reprogramming the subconscious. And so there is a lot to health. There's a lot of foundational issues that people have. But we're not looking at it in conventional medicine. We're not even, talking about it.
Yeah. And then I feel like, and I want to get your thoughts on this, sometimes it can feel a little gimmicky. And that's why I started this podcast, because when you look at soul work or spirituality work or whatever, and I don't claim this to be like a spiritual thing. I think, you have a soul, you have things to look within. Even if you don't think you have a soul, like I think you still need to look inward, know what's going on with you. Like that's the basis of what this is about. But often I find that it's like you have to be like, I worship the stars and I'm going to eat the grass. Like it has to just be very gimmicky instead of just making it practical, or someone's like selling a book, or it's a movie, or it's something that someone's always trying to get from you in order for you to feel like this journey is only for certain people and I'm not on that. But when I hear you talk, and when I combine that with the ideas that we've already discussed on the podcast, it's like, no, everyone should be looking at, questioning, sitting down, thinking, reflecting, because if you never do that, then you keep yourself in a state of like not knowing. You just kind of let life happen, which is something I say often. You let life happen instead of kind of taking back the reins of your life.
Yeah. So, first of all, I think what I'm trying to do is explain the physiology behind the why.
Absolutely.
So that it isn't gimmicky. Because if you can really explain how and why this is happening, then people can get on board with it. But it is sort of like opening up. You're going down a rabbit hole. Once you get this information, then if you choose to ignore it, it's kind of on you. And this is where I'm at, because I just feel like people feel hopeless and helpless, and they trust their doctors. They're feeling like guinea pigs for their doctors, and they don't know what to do. And so I'm trying to provide an option. And if you're not ready for it, if you're like, that's too hard, maybe people need to hit their wall before they're willing to do something that appears hard. I am making it pretty easy for people. But it is, if you get this information, I think it's really education.
Absolutely.
Armed with the education, you have more choice in your life. And so that's what I'm trying to give people, is choice and control in their life.
Absolutely. And we're going to get to that more, because I have a lot to say on that. But before, there's just one more thing that I want you to talk about that was a part of the program that we did with Shalli, and that's what we're going to talk about here in a moment. But the elimination diet, can you talk a little bit about that, what it is, why does it work, and what it's not? Quincy and I have been talking about this stuff since we found it and since we did your class. It is literally something that comes up in every single conversation we have. I kid you not. We were just at our neighbor's house for dinner, and we're just like, we're drinking wine and we're eating this stuff, and no, we don't care what we're doing, but it always comes up. Someone always brings up their health, and then Quincy and I like, that's it. That's our opening. And we're like, have you guys done? And we did. But there's a desire, but there just seems like a lack of knowledge, like what you said, or this hesitancy that I can't do that. That's too hard. Some of those things. So I would love if you talked about that elimination diet portion of,
Yeah, I know it has the word diet in it.
Yes. Yeah.
What it is not is a diet. So it is not about watching calories in any way. What it is learning how to fuel your body. So we are eliminating foods that are causing a lot of inflammation in the body. And what you're focusing on is eating foods that are really nutritious and providing your mitochondria for proper nutrients. So there's a big push for increasing nutrients and decreasing inflammation by getting rid of foods that are causing inflammation. Now, the idea is that you cut out these foods for about 3 to 4 weeks and you decrease the level of inflammation in your body by about 50%. Of course, everybody's different, but generally people's inflammation drops pretty quickly. Usually when we get to week 3 and 4, people don't want to reintroduce the foods because they feel so good.
Yes.
And again, it's not just taking away foods, it's injecting nutrients, big push for nutrients. And so it's this, it's kind of a dance. Decrease inflammation, increase, you're going one way and then the other. What you're doing is stimulating, you're creating health. You're creating health in your body. Then we will reintroduce, let's say, dairy. Reintroduce it. One day you get to eat a lot of dairy. And I want it to be good quality dairy because what I want to know is how your body reacts to milk protein. And if you tolerate it, fine. If you eat it one day and you watch for 2 more days, because you can have a late food reaction up to 3 days later. So you watch. If it causes sinus congestion, or you wake up with stiff joints, or you get a headache, or it causes GI distress, then that's your body telling you it has a problem with dairy. So you're going to keep it out. Now, if you don't have any apparent reactions, you can leave good quality dairy in your diet. And then we'll move to the next food, and maybe we reintroduce eggs. And you see how your body does. And so the foods that don't trigger an immune response, you keep in. The ones that do, you keep out. Now, the message is that it's not the food's fault. If you're eating good quality grass-fed dairy, it's the state of the gut that's making it inflammatory for your immune system. And so you leave it out so that your immune system can be calm and you can heal. But the intention should be to heal the gut, rebalance the microbiome, tighten up the junctions of the gut wall so that you can, have that food and not have an inflammatory response.
Yes.
So it's not that you never eat the food again. It's pointing out, you're using it as a tool to show which things your body specifically is responding in a negative way to. And everyone's different.
Yeah.
It's really powerful to decrease inflammation because a lot of our inflammation is driven from the state of the gut.
And so there are a couple of things that you said, but on that towards the end, that last thing you were kind of saying about, it's not the dairy's fault, it's your gut fault. Because I often hear people proclaim, I have this allergy, or I can't eat this, or I can't do that. And then you wonder, do they ever stop to think that it's them and not the food? And then you also talked about good quality dairy. So I know that's one example, but when people hear good quality, they might wonder, what is that? What do you mean when you say like good quality dairy? Yeah. Even though that's like one example, so I'm sure there's good quality other things. Yeah. And this is part of the education that I'm providing people, is really understanding the quality of the food they're eating. So unfortunately, our government subsidizes the dairy industry. And so they have a lot of money, but the way that they raise their cows is not how cows are supposed to be raised. A cow should be out grazing on grass. Yeah. And so when you have a grass-fed cow that's out in pastures, the quality of nutrients that you're getting from that, not just the milk, but the meat, when we eat the cow, is a higher quality. It has more omega-3s, it has more minerals. And when we put cows in a situation where they're not out grazing, they're trapped in a building, and we feed them corn that has pesticides. And what is that doing to their bodies? Yeah. I never even think about that. Yeah. And so the quality of food you're getting from that cow is not great. And I hear what you're saying. Like my son, I cut out the dairy and his eczema went away. Yeah. And so, I still wasn't totally educated back then. Yeah. I saw a cause and effect, and we cut out dairy. Yeah. But see, now he has dairy and he doesn't have eczema. So he was able to have the food once I understood we had to heal the gut. We are not designed to be eating really restrictive diets long term. Yeah. We're not. And there's a lot of people that don't tolerate certain types of vegetables, like onions or beans or whatever. It's the state of the gut. If you don't have the microbes
to ferment those particular types of fibers, they're creating gas and bloating and stomach pain. Well, it's the gut's fault. It's not the bean.
Gotcha.
And so you have to fix the gut, and then you tolerate the food.
Yeah. And I want to come back to that because when I said it before, kind of made it seem like I had that revelation. I didn't. I was listening to you and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so good. So that's what I was meaning. I wanted to be like, oh wow, no, I did not. I was listening to you and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that was so good. But I was collecting my thoughts as I was saying that. But I mean, like, yeah, there's just so many times that you think you have this aversion, and it is that. I had an allergic, we'll loosely call it an allergic reaction. My mom called it an allergic reaction, but I got sick from seafood when I was really little. I had crab specifically. And it was years that my mom and my dad thought I was allergic to crab. So I never had crab. It wasn't until you get this rebellious boyfriend, Quincy, and he's like, you're not allergic to crab. You're fine. And I'm like, no, I can't eat it. I'm going to get really sick. I had crab and I was totally fine. And I was just like, sometimes we hold on to these ideas without actually understanding what happened or why it happened. Like, I could have been too little. It could have been bad. So many things. So, you really have to, like, why this is all connected. You really have to focus on that gut. I have so many things that I'm thinking about with my own health. And so now I will talk about a little more about how Shalli and I got connected. So a year or so ago, Quincy stumbled up on Dr. Casey Means, and he was watching like her podcast. He found out about their book, her and her brother's book, Callie Means, Good Energy. And Quincy is the type of person, first of all, he's a mathematician, so he goes off of the evidence, so he does a lot of research, but he's like a all-in type of guy. So he's like, I think he emailed Dr. Casey Means, don't quote me on that, but I think he tried to, and then or she had like a resource thing or something she had that she suggested finding.
I think it was, because I read the book too.
Okay.
I think it was the IFM website to find someone that does functional medicine.
That's exactly what it was. Yes. And so that's how he ended up finding Shalli. And he went to the presentation that you did. Yes, the talk. And I couldn't go because this is like so funny because we were debating about bringing our kids because I really wanted to hear, because when he was sharing it all with me, I was like, I don't know. And I watched the podcast episode, and you were saying earlier that you're not a crier. I'm a crier for sure, but it depends on what I'm crying over. And I cried watching that episode with them because there was so much in there that I didn't know that was happening with our food system. Yeah. And I'm the type of person where I treat people how I want to be treated. And so to think that people care more about money and profit, and even at the politician level where they're saying one thing, but their agenda really is keep their pockets lined. And I it's not a political thing, but it's just the reality of what's happening when you listen. I trust you all in a sense. Like, I've been taught from elementary school public education to trust my government, to trust the food makers, to trust the people who go out and get these degrees and they're in positions of power. And I'm feeding my kids this stuff. I'm thinking, well, I got it and they'll be okay. Like, they would never want to harm my kids. Well, they don't care about what's happening to my kids. Like, I have to care. So I was just completely devastated watching it. I couldn't even finish it because I was just so up in arms. But so Quincy and I were trying to decide, do we both go? Do we bring the kids? And we were like, we're not going to disturb that presentation with these wild kids and disturb those other people. So he went and he came back and he's all excited and he's like, we have to do this. And at first I was like, I don't know if I want to do that program. I was just like, change is a lot. And I was just very hesitant, but I also didn't want to be left behind. So that's why I ended up saying, yes, I'll do this program with you. I want to be a part. And so we signed up. And the first thing that, and I'm just gonna talk about two things because you got to sign up. But the two things that really stood out for me was that grocery tour, starting out at Natural Grocers. Natural Grocers. And Shalli took us through very patiently over an hour. It's still very vividly in my mind, from the vegetables and the fruits. And honestly, I'm so stubborn because she was pointing out veggies and fruits and I was like, never gonna try that, never gonna try. And Quincy's like, yes, you are. But she takes us through there. She takes us through the cheese, the dairy, the nuts, and I'm looking at the layout of the store in my mind, the snacks, the just all the way through. We go through over an hour, and she's teaching us she's not picking out foods for us. She's teaching us how to read the labels. And what I found so amazing was that even in Natural Grocers, you can pick up something and there still be ingredients that are not necessarily good for you, and you have to pay attention to those things. So she taught us how to read labels. That's still one of the things that we absolutely do. My oldest son, Kal-El, which we've shared with Shalli, reads labels, and he corrects us all the time. And when we're in the store, he's like, how much sugar is in that? And what is that healthy for us? He's always asking now, is that healthy for us? I hate when he asks that when we cheat, because I'm like, no, it's not. But it's a cheat day. He's like, how many cheat days are we going to have? I'm like, first of all, you're 7. So anyway, so that was the standout thing. And then also doing the classes. So we met each week with Shalli. I forgot how big our group was. I think it was just 5 of us. 5.
I can't remember either. It might have been a few more, but yeah. I usually 5 to 10 people.
Yes.
That's the size.
Something like that. I was still postpartum, and the kids were always screaming when I was on these classes. It was like I don't know. So I was in and out, but the classes were great. And what I really started to lose my hesitancy about it when we got into the classes, and the classes did not just, like she said, we're not weighing in, we're not coming in. She wasn't grilling us and asking. Now, we do talk about kind of how it's going in general, but she's so patient and so kind. And then we talk about sleep, and we talked about mindfulness, and we talked about stress, and we talked about exercise. A lot of these things I was not doing, wasn't getting good sleep, was not exercising. But then I found out why it's important, more than just being like, oh, you need to exercise because it's exercise. She really helped us understand the why behind it. And that's big for me. And so that, and there was one more thing that I was going to say, like, oh, the elimination diet. Now, I'm going to be honest with you all. I was grumpy. So that's why I was saying that the classes really brought me back, because I was so angry with, not with Shalli, but just with having to cut out so much. And then you realize how much of that, those food types that you're relying on or that you're eating, that having to find healthy alternatives was so hard. And one of my favorite meals ended up just being chicken breast with peppers and hot sauce, because I can still have hot sauce if you read the ingredients. So, and that just became one of my favorite meals. And to this day, I really miss it. I don't get to cook lunch for myself that often anymore. But it's like finding these new ways to eat and eating nuts and just changing. And so it was not fun at first. But again, when we're coming to class each week and Shalli is explaining the why behind what we're doing, and she's breaking down almost every component of your life, from family to your stressors to your job, then it's like, oh, I understand why this is so important. So we went in this with Quincy and I, and we had our kids, and we made a few adjustments for them, but they're little, so not full adjustments for anybody out there with families. But from your side, what do you typically see happen in families who go through an elimination diet together, and what shifts?
Yeah, it's I love, and I haven't had that many families do it.
Okay.
But I think people are, well, you're in a really busy period of time. And so I think people feel like it's daunting, but man, our kids are sick. Our kids are sick at a young age, and kids, what I'm finding is the kids grab onto this in such a great way. Yeah. So when the parents are doing it, and the conversation changes at home.
Absolutely.
And you're not having to, force your kids to be on this strict diet. But when the conversation changes, then they become more willing to try what you're having. Yeah. I had there was a grandma, she said that she had her granddaughter at the grocery store, and she said, "No, Grandma, I don't eat that cereal. There's too much sugar in it." So when the kids, you can teach the kids, and they grab onto it. And, eating, I think it's funny because eating a diverse array of plants, fruits, and vegetables is a big part of this, because that's really healing to developing a resilient microbiome. And kids today, when you say eat the rainbow, they think it's like Skittles or Lucky Charms or something, but it's really supposed to be about fruits and vegetables and the colors, the polyphenols and flavonoids. So we can teach our kids, and they can grab onto trying new things. And there was another daughter, I think she was around 12, but, she wanted to make cupcakes, and she asked her mom, is there dyes for the frosting that don't have any chemicals in them? And so together we found one, and of course there is, but there's ways. So teaching the kids is amazing, because I think, and I see my son too, he has conversations with his friends. You're trying out for the soccer team. Well, if you want your body to work well, you know, you can't have McDonald's every day for lunch. You know, think about what you're putting in. So I love the ripple effect it has when parents buy in, when parents get the education and the conversation changes, then the kids buy in and then they influence other kids. And we just aren't, you know, the food that kids are given at school, you know, the easy prepackaged items, you know, Lunchables, look at those ingredients. It's a bunch of chemicals all mashed together and presented like food. You know, no wonder they can't think. No wonder they have attention problems, can't focus. And so we have to, I think it's such a great way for us to introduce great ideas to our kids. And they are capable of learning. Very 100%, capable. And keeping you on track.
Yes.
Which I love.
Yeah, keeping us on track because, I mean, it's so spot on for us. So I'm a witness to everything she's saying because we never sat the kids down and said, you guys are going to do this diet. We never did that. Quincy and I just started having conversations. We started working out and our kids want to work out. They want to pick up weights and they want to, even if I was doing Pilates, they like messing with all the equipment, but whatever it was, they just wanted to do it with us. And that got them excited. And then with eating differently, they never complained. Like it's not until they see it in the grocery store and they realize, oh, I can't have that. But they never at home were like, this is nasty or like, you know, what's happening in this household? They just went right along with it. And, my second son is a little different, but even he, because he's 5 now, but even he hearing his older brother say things, then now he asks, is this healthy for us? Does this have this in it? Does this have, you know, and it's just been an amazing thing. So I also want to ask too, for people who may just be like married couple, because I feel like for Quincy and I doing it together, it was easier on us in a sense because we had each other to keep motivated. Do you see a lot of couples versus, you know, families with children?
Yeah. Gosh. Alexandria. You hit a nerve with me. This one. I see time and time again, women want to feel better and they're willing to do the work.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm even in the middle of a grocery tour and they're like, I just am so worried because what is my husband going to eat? He's not willing to do this with me. Or, you know, well, this is going to be hard because now I have to cook 2 different meals because my husband won't eat this. It is incredibly powerful when you do it as a team.
Yeah.
Incredibly powerful. But what I see more often than not is men want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And I hate that women want to do something good for themselves.
Absolutely.
But their man is holding them back.
Yeah, which is...
And this is a bigger problem. Yeah. This is a systemic issue. And, but I lived that too. And, you know, and we can't force health on people. Yeah. But I did.
Very true. Yeah.
I was forcing health on my husband. He had he didn't want to do it. And, but I'm like, but no, you have to be healthy. No, you know, I'm like, absolutely. We can reverse this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, I'll do it if you cook the food and put it in front of me. And I just hate that women continue to do that. I hate mad at my young self. Yeah. You know, they're grown-ups and can make choices and make their own food and fend for themselves for 2 months if you want to do something good for you. Absolutely. And so, it's beautiful when there's support. Yeah. But I hate when it makes a woman's life harder.
Yes. Something better.
Something great for them.
Yeah. 100%.
It's just not fair.
Yeah. And even before, let me give myself some credit here because even before Quincy found all this, I was telling Quincy, you're not healthy. Not that he was sick, but I'm like, just certain things that are happening to you don't seem to be adding up. But he won't go to the doctor. You feel like this was a big wake-up call for him. But again, he's a big evidence guy. He's a big, like, I need to run the data and I need to see it wasn't about a professional. He'll listen, but it's about the data behind it. And so once he got the data, and of course he's giving me my credit, like, yeah, you were right. We were having some like fertility issues. So our first was really easy, and then it got progressively kind of challenging the second and the third. The fourth ended up being easy, but I told Quincy because they always feel like it's you as the woman, it's your body. And I'm like, sir, I go to the doctor because of these appointments. They're drawing my blood. I know I don't have all the gut information at this time, but I'm like, to them, I'm seemingly healthy. There's no big red flags for me. So the only other person that could be it in this equation is you. And then we get with you and we find out that, yeah, that was something that was affected from his gut health. They feel like they're healthy because they feel good, but I think I read something about how men usually die or they end up really sick at the end of their lives because they never go get checked up or they never find out about what's happening within them.
I wonder sometimes if it's deeper, like if it's more like men, I don't know if they just assume they're healthy.
Yeah.
I just have a little acid reflux. I just have a little, just a
little back pain. A little,
just a little this, a little that. But I wonder if they don't want to know because then it makes them feel weak. And men have this really pressure to be strong and take care of. And they don't want to know that they have, that they're not invincible.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
love that. I think a lot. Listen, you said it because I can see that. I can see that even if you're not a provider necessarily for a woman, you have this sense, like you talked about, from society, from societal pressures that it can't be me. And in fact, there's a story that I read of a young man who was having symptoms for, I think, months and never went and got checked up because he just kept working and I had to provide and I had to be here for my family. And then he ended up sick and he passed away when it was something that at one point was preventable. And I'm talking young, maybe 30s. And I thought about that of how hard do you drive yourself? And I know as a wife, you're saying sit down, slow down. But like, when do they take their health seriously to the point where you see health as power? I have to be here, so I need to go figure out what's going on instead of So
that's a really good point. And I really wish that people understood that you can prevent big problems. The functional medicine lens catches things way ahead of time. And a good example of that is, type 2 diabetes is rampant, right?
Yeah.
So, in conventional medicine, we look at a fasting glucose, we wait till your HbA1c increases, it's inching up over the years, and then you hit a magic number and they're like, congratulations, here's some metformin and a blood glucose meter. But the reality is if you look at fasting insulin, so if your blood sugars are high, there's a period of time where your pancreas is spitting out insulin and it's keeping your blood sugars down. It's working. It's working well. We have a mechanism to keep our blood sugars down. So, but that tells you that it's overworked. If you look at a fasting insulin and see that that's high, you can catch pre-diabetes.
Wow.
And look at all that. When we wait till we hit the number.
Yeah.
We already have microvascular complications. You already have neuropathy brewing, retinopathy brewing. We have so much damage happening at the cellular level that you can't feel. And so if we would just look earlier, look sooner, you can prevent these really horrible things from happening. But I don't know. People don't realize that. They just wait until the big thing happens.
And I think there are other factors to that. Some of them you've already mentioned, but I think in a sense there's a trust in certain things of our government, and then there's this distrust. But for whatever reason, I still think that there's this big trust that, the food companies and all of these people that are putting things on, they're not trying to harm me. They're not trying to. So you just think, or with many things that I found, they claim to be healthy, but then they have xanthan gum or they have a lot of added sugar. And I'm not going to call out any brands, but there were quite a few that when we started this, and I'm thinking, oh, easy, I can find snacks. And I go to that brand and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even eat that. And I think, and I've seen a lot of people on TikTok or Instagram when those videos come up and they're changing their lifestyles and they want to eat healthy. And I'm like screaming on the inside because I don't know them and I'm not a commenter like to be like correcting someone, but I'm screaming because I'm looking at the brands and I'm like, no, read the label. Like read the label because it's still not good for you, even though they're slapping healthy on it or they're saying it has, natural. It's natural. Yeah.
It's going to be good for me.
A trend I've been seeing, because you talked about the type 2 diabetes, a trend I've been seeing in people my age is getting diagnosed with ADHD and then immediately getting on medicine. Do you think, and I know you talked about focus, so that's why I'm bringing it up. I'm not saying that it's not legitimate for people, but when I've heard people mention that they are getting diagnosed with ADHD and then they're getting the medicine, they often attribute it to things like, I'm scrolling on my phone, or I can't focus, or I get distracted. And I'm thinking, well, do I have ADHD? Because I do all of those things. Do you think that things like that are also connected to the way we eat, which you've already hinted at?
Yeah, absolutely. The way our brains work, and again, the neurons, the brain cells, they require specific nutrients. And so when we are eating nothing but chemicals, like let's look at all their kids. I know you mentioned people your age, but anyone, look at what you're eating. If what you're consuming is largely chemicals, how do you expect your brain cells to be functioning right? How? If you're not getting proper omega-3 fats, something, our neuron connections are dependent on, there's a myelin sheath and it's made up of fats. And if you're not getting enough good quality fats, which most of us are not, because we're not eating enough fish or walnuts, things that have good omega-3s, sardines, stuff like that. People aren't eating
Quincy
them,
tried
right?
to get me on those sardines. I was like, that's where I draw the line at.
I eat them because they're not that bad and they don't have eyeballs and they're not scary. But my point being, like, we're not getting proper nutrients for proper brain function.
Yeah.
The other thing is we do have some dopamine dysfunction because of the scrolling. We know that we are those quick hits on Instagram, it's releasing dopamine, we're getting dopamine, and eventually your brain gets dopamine resistance, just like insulin resistance. Signals, we stop receiving signals when we get too much of something. Our brain, our bodies adapt to the stimulus. And so it's helpful to understand the mechanism, the physiology behind some of these things, because yes, you can improve focus. Absolutely. And changing, eating clean ingredients, things that are fueling your cells, increasing good quality fats, and watching your dopamine. Like these things can work.
And I brought that up too, because it goes back to something you were mentioning, even with your own children, and just the foundation of when you're being handed medicine, it's just slapping a Band-Aid over it. And I think people assume that it's going to help whatever it is, whatever you think about, right, just get better. But I don't know how I developed this philosophy at all, but since I was a baby, and you can ask my grandma, she loves telling this story, I never liked medicine. They would put it in my bottle and I would know it was there. They would give me the milk. Then they figured out, okay, let's give her the milk first. And they would take I don't know why they were doing this. They would give me my milk. They would take my bottle. They would put the medicine in. I would take the bottle and I knew there was medicine. I've never liked medicine. And somewhere, seriously, at a young age, I realized, and I want to say maybe it became around the time that I got my cycle started, and I noticed a lot of people would take medication for the cramps. And I did, and I tried that, and I realized after a few hours, my cramps were still there. So it wasn't actually healing my cramps. It was just masking it for a little bit. And then you end up with a lot of side effects from medications when you keep taking them for a long time. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not like anything, but I don't know how my brain just picked up on, like, I don't want to mask the pain. I literally don't take medicine. And I can't swallow pills. Shalli knows this because I struggle with the vitamins portions. I forgot to be honest with y'all that, like, we were supposed to take vitamins. Quincy did a really good job for a long time, and yeah, your girl cannot take pills. So we're gonna figure out the alternative for me. But I'm just, beyond that though, even taking liquid medications, even to the point where when I'm having my babies, and if they ask me, do I want a certain medicine? I'm like, if I don't have to take it, I won't take it. I would rather just have the pain and know what's happening with my body, or, have an idea of what's happening than to mask it over. So that's why I was kind of asking that, because I feel like we get so dependent, and then you're paying. So it's a money industry as well, for these medications, but it's not going to solve what's actually happening. It's kind of just masking it.
Yeah. And I totally agree with that. My view is that we supplement because we're lacking to begin with. When people come to me, they are typically really deficient in nutrients. And like I said, we're calming inflammation, we're injecting nutrients. I want most of your nutrients to come from your food. The reality is sadly, the state of our soil is such that the produce that we're growing
Mm-hmm.
has less nutrients than it did decades ago.
Wow.
There's a big push for regenerative agriculture. And again, it has to do with like the microbes and nutrients that are in the soil.
Yeah.
So we've depleted our soil. And so even our broccoli doesn't have as much nutrients. And so if you primarily get your nutrients through your diet, which is what I prefer, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Our cells utilize that source of energy better than a pill form. It's processed.
Yeah.
So I think that there's some good that comes from supplementing for a while and then understanding, having the education to know what you're doing, and then eat for fueling your cells, eat for fueling your microbiome.
Yeah.
And then maybe have, I like those like super greens powders because they're not capsules, but they're a little bit more, closer to real food, but getting a little bit more nutrients because I don't think, I do really eat mindfully for my cellular health. Yeah. But I still think that I don't get enough. And so I will use those types of powders to get a little bit more nutrients.
Yeah. So speaking of the powders, because we had the powders and it did not taste good. And like I mentioned about the sardines, but I asked you about this in the classes, and I would love for you to talk about this with the audience. When you don't like the taste of something, or when something's not your favorite, like what do you say to some of those objections?
Okay. Depending on the rapport I have with someone, the first thing I'm going to tell you is to put on your big girl pants.
Yeah.
Yep. This is like you. I mean, you're not a child anymore.
Yeah.
You're going to look at this differently and you're going to say, okay, I understand that I don't like this. It's bitter. But what happens is your taste buds change over time. They really 100% do. Yeah. The processed food industry with their high salt, high fat, high sugar, they've hijacked our taste buds. When you clean it up and your taste buds change. I remember a time when I cut out all sugar for the first time. I remember eating celery and going, oh my gosh, there's a sweetness here, which people don't call celery sweet. Yeah. But, get your taste buds back to the way they're supposed to work. You have to eat with an understanding. You don't get to be a child anymore. Yeah. I mean,
it's not all fun and games.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. While we're kind of talking about these objections, so me not liking sardines but needing to put my big girl pants on. Another thing that I often hear, and I honestly not just hear but know from doing this, is that eating healthy is expensive. And so, what would you say to someone who wants to do this but genuinely can't afford it? Or what do you say to people who can afford it but still object to doing it because
the cost?
Because of the cost.
I think that there needs to be a change in strategy. People think coming into it, they might think that they have to shop at specialty stores, which legitimately are expensive. Yeah. I do my grocery tour at Natural Grocers. Yes. And it's a perfect place because it's not too big. I can do it in just over an hour, but it has the proper substitution items. So when people are eliminating soy sauce, I can show them about coconut aminos. There's specific substitutions there. It's a great place for learning. And once the education is there, people then shop where they shop. And what I have found is it's pretty incredible where people find good quality items once they know to look for them. So, for example, a couple groups ago, there's a specific mayonnaise that doesn't have canola oil, sugar, eggs.
It's the green one. Is it green?
It has a green lid, and it's vegan. And I show people at Natural Grocers that one because during the elimination we can't have eggs, and so there's that one. Well, it was on back order or something. They didn't have it. Chuck's didn't have it. Our text threads, we have a group text going. People are like, can anyone find this mayo? Well, someone found it at Winco. Yeah. And it was cheaper there. Yeah. So once
Fred Meyer and Costco too.
Yeah, you can find it's knowing what to look for. Yes. I just had someone the other day tell me that they found grass-fed dairy ice cream sweetened with honey.
Wow.
Right?
That's really specific. That's
at Grocery
great.
Outlet.
Oh, wow.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's amazing.
So once you know what to look for, you're going to find products in other places. Now, Costco, is amazing. Obviously, there's better value there. I can't do a grocery tour there. It would take way too long. But I do provide people with pictures of things that we get at Costco. And I always tell them, keep looking, because read labels, use the skills you've learned, because there's a huge market for this. Stores are coming out with new products all the time that are clean, that don't have a bunch of chemicals and dyes. And so keep looking. You know, at Costco, for example, they have a big jug of pomegranate juice. Now, I want people to drink a shot of pomegranate juice every day, because the polyphenols feed not just the cells, but there's a specific bacteria, Akkermansia, that feeds on polyphenols from pomegranate and cranberry. It's really important for the integrity of the gut wall and for blood sugar regulation and fat oxidation. And so it's a really important bacteria strain, and we want to feed it. And so, you know, that pomegranate juice can go on sale at Costco and be like $6, which is the same price as a really tiny one at Safeway. So knowing these things, you know, again, knowing what to look for, what's going to fuel your body. Buying frozen vegetables can be cheaper. And again, at Costco, but you know, vegetables are harvested when they're ripe, so they're peak nutrition, they freeze them. And so, you know, frozen produce is great. Do that.
I remember coming to ask you that, because Quincy was like, it's frozen. And then you told me, and I was like, see,
it's good. And then, you know, people assume they have to buy everything organic, but I try to, you know, the Environmental Working Group tests the produce every year. They come out with a clean 15 and a dirty dozen list. And so it'll tell you the top 12 things that have the highest amount of pesticides. So those would be the most important to buy organic, whereas the clean 15, you know, that has things like bananas and avocados and melons. You know, you don't have to worry about it. And so you don't have to buy everything organic. There's also an online company called Imperfect Produce that you can have. I don't know if you've never grown your own vegetables, you might not know, but sometimes, you know, your carrots grow with two legs.
You know,
there's different
like people who do
they don't sell those at the grocery store, but there's companies that will take all those and then they ship them to you. The Imperfect Produce it's a discounted rate. And so there's definitely ways that you can spend less money on whole fresh food. You just have to know what you're looking for. I do think there's a big problem with, you know, people spend a lot of money on things like their hair, their nails, and their skincare. Right. And I mean, we all want to be beautiful. I do too. But what I think they're missing is that if you actually, you know, feed your cells what they need, if you understand that if you break down and absorb your protein that you're eating better, that's going to improve your hair, your skin, and your nails. You know, my rosacea's gone. It reversed.
What's rosacea?
Just like generalized redness on the face. And a lot of people do have that. It's a gut health issue.
Gotcha.
You know, I had nail problems before, and I started taking a digestive enzyme, and it made a world of difference because I wasn't breaking down and absorbing my proteins well. I've had people go through this program that say their hair gets thicker because when you calm down the inflammation in your body, things change. And not only that, have more energy. You have, you know, your joint stiffness goes away. You feel better in general. And I feel like if you feel good, you can present in the world with more internal radiant beauty and energetic magnetic energy.
That's what I was gonna say, is like, would you rather look pretty or feel better? Because you can have the nails and the hair or whatever it is for men, the haircuts and whatever clothes, but you can be fatigued. You can be struggling to get out of bed in the morning. You can you're like you say, you can be achy. We can't see that, but you can feel it. So it's like which would you rather have? I
mean, people, they're not happy about it, but they spend lots of money on their pets when they go to the vet because it's not covered by insurance. And so, you know, you do it because you love your animal. But for some reason, our perspective is if it's not a $20 copay, it's not worth it for us. And what we need to understand is that $20 copay isn't getting you anything that works. It's not making you healthy. And so maybe the out-of-pocket cost for true health is going to be worth it.
That's so good.
Learn, get the information so that you know that you're on a healing path rather than a deteriorating path. Because, you know, you have to think about the longevity, and maybe you're reprioritizing for a short period of time to get some education behind how to make the rest of your life really plentiful,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
make it,
Yeah.
do whatever you want,
Yeah.
but feel good.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about and I brought was my handy dandy binder that I got from doing the course. I wanted to talk about the binders because I've already hinted at this, that each week there was a different focus, and it was such a big part of the program. And my tabs that I had, we talked about sleep, exercise, stress, mindfulness. I think I already listed this. You had toxins in there. You also gave us the little card, told us about, so you have like a cheat sheet almost when you go in the grocery store, so you know what's good, what's not, those things. But I wanted to ask you, like, why in your classes approach it this way with the binders, and why not just focus on food?
Yeah, and it's something that I think largely people don't understand, because it really is not just about food.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, I'm spending in this 8 weeks, 8 hours to educate people.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the physiology behind, let's look at sleep. What's going on during the stages of sleep? Because it's really important for renewing your immune cells. And if we ignore sleep, if we don't figure out why we're not sleeping, then that could be your barrier to healing. If we aren't moving, if we're ignoring balance, that's going to affect our longevity. If we don't understand the power our mind has in our in how our physiology presents, it's that can be what's holding you back. And that's where I think I mentioned it before, but the food is foundational for sure.
Yeah.
We have to heal. We have to put our bodies in a place to heal. But there can be barriers to healing. And that's where these other things need to be addressed. If you don't understand how to manage your stress, that can be the thing that's driving the chronic inflammation in your body.
Yeah.
If your nervous system is in that stressed state, you don't even realize it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I lived that. I mean, I didn't realize my nervous system. I really presented as a calm, kind of chill person, but I was kind of revved up inside. My nervous system, it's something that I'm working on right now through acupuncture and stuff. But, when your nervous system is in a state that's just trying to keep you in survival, you're not going to heal.
Yeah.
And so it's more than just food.
Yeah.
Food is huge.
Yeah.
Toxins, I mean, I love doing that talk because it's sad. It's not fun.
Yeah.
But
I think I remember you saying it was one of your favorites.
It's eye-opening for people because they don't understand the toxins that are in their world. And so I point them out and go, look, our total toxic load, we have to pay attention to that. Not everyone is going to be able to detoxify the same. All of these things matter. I love the analogy where you have a fish in a fish tank, and it's happy swimming in its little ecosystem. And then when the water gets murky and the glass gets dirty, you take the fish out and you clean the glass and you put in fresh water. You clean its environment. You don't drug the fish to handle its environment.
That's so good.
And so what all of those things are doing is cleaning up the environment. The lifestyle matters. And I'm trying to really provide the science behind it, because I think for people to make lifelong changes, they have to understand why it matters. So that's why I do the binder with the information.
Which I love. And you mentioned this a few times about your nervous system, or about like being in this, this certain state. It's something that I'm realizing about myself. I don't like to call it anxiety, but I don't know what I would call it, but I just feel like my body is always like, I'm on edge. I'm waiting for the next thing, and especially around certain people or certain environments, I'm realizing that too. Can you talk just a little more about kind of how sometimes those things manifest, or what it could be connected to?
I mean, we can. I mean, of course, it can start from childhood situations and just maybe the environment of the family you're growing up in. It's how your nervous system is keeping you feeling safe as a child, because you can't process, you don't understand. And so your body finds a way to keep you safe. And, so it's not your fault when you fail. Sometimes it's your nervous system succeeding at keeping you safe. It's what it knows how to do. It's what it was trained to do.
Gotcha.
And so sometimes that needs to turn around. Now, the other thing I would like to address here is just I don't think we understand how important breathing is. I don't we don't breathe fully. If you start paying
That's so
attention to how you're
interesting.
breathing,
Yeah.
we don't fill our lungs fully. So what happens when you take a good deep inhale and you fill your lungs fully, it stretches the diaphragm, which is underneath your lungs. The vagus nerve is innervated there, and that turns on the parasympathetic calming state of your nervous system. So when you take a full deep breath and you stretch that diaphragm, you can come out of your stressed state and be calm. For people that have experienced the joy of watching a baby sleep, babies, you know, they get their arms up, their belly, they breathe with their belly. Naturally, we are born breathing correctly. But what happens and when does it happen? I don't know. But somehow we start breathing shallow. Just start noticing. Start noticing throughout your day how you're breathing. And, you know, that's part of the reason we don't come out of a stressed state. You know, we're inundated with stress. We have to start breathing properly to truly calm.
That's so good. That's really good. What does the research actually say about the connection between what we eat and how we feel emotionally, mentally, not just physically? And I know we've touched on some of this, but I would love to just hear more of your thoughts and like a type.
That question makes me think of a study where they changed the food that was being given to inmates in a prison. And, you know, there's a lot of violence in prisons, and they changed the food to clean whole foods, and the amount of violence dropped significantly.
Wow.
And so we know for sure that, you know, food, again, you know, is affecting our mental well-being, how reactive we are, our irritability, our anger, our ability to think. The gut-brain connection is huge. The microbiome takes the food and ferments it, and if you have the right bacteria, they're producing serotonin. Serotonin is the neurochemical that's implicated in depression and anxiety. And so, you know, we take medications that try to increase the serotonin, but if the problem is that we don't have the bacteria that can produce the serotonin, then the serotonin cannot then go up to the brain to function for us. So we have 70% more information going from gut to brain than brain to gut. So the gut is driving our mental state. You know, I had one gal come to me just for cognitive decline. And, you know, she was afraid to do the program because she thought she was so addicted to sugar that she just didn't think she could do it. But she thought, well, the group aspect, maybe that would help with the accountability and maybe this would help. And so she took a chance, and, you know, she did we taught her how to eat differently, how to look at her environment differently, how to increase good fats for brain function. Use things like lion's mane, functional mushrooms, and things that increase neurogenesis, the growth of new neurons. She looked at her microbiome and did a gut protocol. And at her 6-month follow-up visit, she not only had lost 40 pounds, but she was like, I finally taught myself how to crochet. I've always wanted to, but I couldn't read the instructions and comprehend them. And so, you know, she's in her 60s, worried about her brain function. And look how she was able to increase it. We don't have to be okay with this deterioration. We've just all accepted it as normal.
Yes, absolutely.
We don't have to.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I want to touch really quickly on the group aspect, because I forgot to mention this earlier, because you mentioned the group chat, the text. And I loved the text group because they would share their meals, or like you said, items that you're finding at the stores, or we could ask for substitutes. And so what do you find that people get? Because you're seemingly going into a group of strangers, but it felt like on the other side, though, some of them I'm, you know, connected through like on social media, though I don't talk to them every day. There's like this bond you almost get coming out on the other side. Like,
you do something hard with someone. I actually really love it. And I often think this group of people is here for a reason. You know, they're going to learn from each other. And it is. I love the group aspect. We do keep in touch with that group text. We can help each other. I love that we can show pictures of what we're eating because it gives other people ideas. I'm also providing information over the course of the 8 weeks through the text thread too. But it's nice to just have someone to bounce things off of. And one of, you know, there was a time where I had someone doing this. Her husband and her teenage boys were not doing it with her, but she knew she needed that accountability because she didn't have it at home.
Absolutely.
And so she knew I'm going to check in with my group, and that kept her from, eating the donuts when they showed up at work.
Yeah.
So when you have people that you're doing this with, even though it's not in your home, it helps you stay on track.
Absolutely.
And then stay on track long enough, do you develop a new habit?
Yes. Yeah. And we had a couple of those celebratory moments. I can't remember who it was, but, came into the chat and was like, hey, someone brought this into work and I didn't touch them, or, so I really enjoyed the group aspect a lot. One of the other things you mentioned that I just want to touch on really quickly, not as a question, but more so back to when we were talking about the cost of eating healthy and going to the grocery store and looking differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that we used to shop at Costco before, and we still shop at Costco now. And before we shopped at Costco, I didn't see anything healthy, to be honest. Like, I saw all of the Frito-Lay chips and whatever we were constantly getting. And then after, even though, like you said, we did the grocery store tour at Natural Grocers, just learning what to get and sharing brands in the chat or coming and ask, where can I find this? Going through Costco now, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's this. And I can spot now when they have like new healthy brands and same thing at Fred Meyer. When we first went to Fred Meyer after doing this, it was like, I was like, I can't shop here. And then now I'm finding like, okay, I see the brands that I'm used to getting now, and I'm seeing more. So I just thought that was interesting how my perspective changed once I knew what to look for, like you were saying earlier.
It's an education.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so my next question, and kind of my last few questions here as we wrap up. So I want you to talk more about, who is functional health for? Is it only for people who are sick, or is there a case for people who feel fine, but they need to be paying attention too? And we've kind of touched on this already, but I would love to.
I mean, definitely, I think it's for everybody. Because what I wish people understood is that they can prevent issues before they hit. You can be brewing an autoimmune disease for 20 to 30 years. Wow. And there are signs, that little bit of acid reflux, those seasonal allergies, that low back pain, there's issues, there's signs. Your body is trying to tell you something. If you're getting migraines, it doesn't have to be directly gut related symptoms. A lot of people do have gut issues specifically. And that's kind of it affects your life. When you're worried about where the bathroom is going to be and you don't travel because of it, I mean, you're absolutely affecting your life. And so, it can all change. This can totally change your life. And I just wish people understood the prevention piece of it.
Absolutely.
And I think people think they're well. They may not be.
Yeah.
Currently.
Yeah.
You start listening to your body.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the body awareness that this creates.
Yeah.
I had somebody go through this, and I mean, debilitating gut symptoms. So she was afraid to eat out anywhere.
Yeah.
And we did this to try to hone in on what's really triggering the symptoms. The only thing she didn't tolerate was the bad oils.
Oh, wow.
Everything else was fine.
Wow.
And so then she knows. And so, the wise thing to do there, I mean, she's doing the gut healing protocol because she shouldn't be so reactive, period.
Right.
But, bring some olive oil, have it in your purse.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah.
And there's little travel packs. Yeah. And, when you know what's causing your problems, then you can continue to live your life in a smarter way.
Yeah. It's changed our lives. And that is an agreement between Quincy and I. We were talking about that on the way here. He's like, this has absolutely changed our lives. And Shalli has changed our lives being able to actually do it in practice, because we were pretty overwhelmed trying to figure out, okay, so how do we do all of this? But having this program, y'all, like it made the world of difference. So my last few questions, and this one is another objection. And so let me explain why I keep bringing up these objections, because I don't know that I said this, but I did mention that we talk about this with every single person we come across, whether it's work, whether it's family, our neighbors, like it always comes up. And we've kind of been like pleading with the people that we know who can't get out of bed or who have that inflammation and who are trying to cope with medications and it's not working, or just passing it off to like getting old or whatever it is. And I was like, I was going to talk about functional health. And then I said, absolutely not. Because I tried to sell it to them in a practical way. And you watch them get excited about the elimination part, and then you start telling them what you have to eliminate, and then they're like, yeah, I don't think I can do that. And I literally have my friends saying it's too hard, or they don't even get to the cost. It doesn't even get to cost. It gets to, it's too hard. I don't think I can give up my favorite things, or I don't think I need that. They're thinking, well, I don't have any signs. And we keep telling them, like, we didn't have signs necessarily, although there were signs, but we don't have the major things that you're thinking. Like, no doctor had to tell me, hey, you have this. And so I keep bringing up these things because I'm like trying to shake those people and say, hey, you guys, like, really, really believe in this. Like, this is really what you need because you're not getting it. I'm happy that you talked about the calorie counting because Quincy did lose weight, but that wasn't necessarily his goal. Yeah. And then we've had people say like, wow, he lost a lot of weight, but it's like, that's not the point either though.
I don't focus on it.
Yeah. We never talked about, it's like I said, we don't come in and weigh in. Like, that's not the point of it. Because I didn't need to lose weight. I actually needed to gain. And that was the conversation that we had as well. So it's different for everyone. But the whole point is understanding how your body functions, what's happening, and getting to the root of the issue instead of staying at that surface level. So we're trying to shake them. Hopefully this will get them there.
I do think, I just want to speak to, I think people get diagnoses, labeled.
Yeah.
Well, they take that on as who they are. And, well, it's just my irritable bowel.
Yeah.
It's just my, like, whatever their diagnosis is, they take that on
so good
as their personality and like that it can't be changed.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm trying to shake people too and go, but wait, you can reverse that. That's not who you are. Yeah. That's just a symptom of what's going on in your body.
So good.
It's not who you are.
Okay. So last a few questions here. So the objection that I wanted to touch on was that a lot of people hear this and sometimes their first, or really not their first, but sometimes their second or whatever response is that it's too hard, that they can never give up the food, or that they're too old for this work. Because I've had that said, or even too young. Yeah. I've had both sides.
Funny, because just yesterday I was talking to somebody about this, and he likened it to learning a new language. Like, it's kind of a culture shock.
Yeah.
This is something totally new, and you have to, it's hard to step into something that's so new and foreign.
Yes.
But, because, you take away gluten and dairy, and people are like, but those are the two things I eat.
Yeah.
No question. Well, that's why you're sick, and so I'm trying to help you, again, find substitutions. We are going to feed your body what it needs. And people are worried in the beginning.
Yeah.
Everybody is worried in the beginning. I'm trying to hold their hand through that.
Yes.
That's the whole point of the grocery tour, so I can open up their mind about what there is to eat, and they have to trust me that their taste buds are going to change, and you're going to find that you aren't hungry. You can eat when you're hungry. Eat as long as it's real food. So I'm going to tell you what real food is.
Yes.
I'm going to show you what real food is, because if you eat real food, then you shouldn't be hungry. If you're prioritizing protein and good healthy fats, these are things that make you feel satiated. If you're feeding your gut microbiome fiber and polyphenols, those chemical messages that occur that tell you when to stop eating, that we've got hormones, leptin and ghrelin, and when these things fall back into place and get functioning like they should, you don't tend to overeat. You know when to stop. You're not always hungry.
So
and I understand that it's scary, but I mean, and that's the thing, I guess, is I like when people come to my talks because I think that human connection matters.
Absolutely.
And I'm really trying to develop a rapport with people so that they do trust me. I've walked people through this. They do great.
Yeah.
Nobody fails.
Yeah.
You find things to eat.
Yeah.
It is not as hard as it seems on paper.
Yeah.
But until they see me talk, they're just, I don't know.
Yeah.
They're not always going to trust.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I wanted to do this episode with you to say, because I'm always saying, Shalli, she's great. She's amazing. But I'm like, here, she's a real person, you guys. She is a real PhD. Like, I shared this, and I'm going to put this in here because in the Black community, there are a lot of doctor titles, but not everybody actually has went to school. And so sometimes you can tell Black people doctor, and they're thinking of like they know many doctors, some with degrees and some with, and not. So sometimes it's hard to convince them that like this is a real person who has like real knowledge, who has done the real work, and like they're serious. So that's also why I was like, no, she's a very real person, very knowledgeable, and very patient as well. No, the when we did the elimination diet portion, just the way that our physical bodies felt almost immediately was amazing to experience. And the whole journey for us has literally changed our lives. And we don't say that lightly, and don't take it lightly that you allowed us to even be a part of the program, or even offering this from your foundation and from, you know, your heart and the things that you're doing. But I would love for you to talk about, if someone right now is curious and they want to start somewhere, what would you tell them to do first, and specifically more about your program as well? So maybe they have a first step that's not you. Maybe what does that look like? But when someone wants to come and start your program, I mean, I'm assuming it's probably going to be the tour, but how would you walk them through like getting started?
Ideally,
Not the tour. I'm sorry. I meant the talk. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Ideally it's the talk, because it gives a foundational knowledge of my point of view, because you have to understand where I'm coming from to buy in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to present it in a way that you can't deny this is the problem here. And so with that, and trusting that I know what I'm doing, because you hear me talk and talk about the physiology, I can guide people through, and I'm going to show you how to make it easy. I love when people come with, you know, if it's a spouse or if it's a friend, if someone has someone they're doing it with, it's so much better. So much better, because you can work together. If you do a whole group of people, you know, you could rotate, you know, Sunday dinners, like, so that you're not always doing, you know, this, you're not always cooking, and it's fun because you're experimenting, but it's with friends. And so if it's a fail, if you try a recipe and you're like, oh my gosh, this did not work, it's your friends, who cares? You know, like you're all in it together. And maybe you have a backup plan, but part of this is figuring out what your family likes to eat. I mean, in the binder, I provide recipes that my family really like for people to try. With the elimination diet information, there's recipes that come, and then just people on their own. We share recipes. I try to give people ideas, and it, again, just, you have to put on your big girl pants and try some new things. And then you find, oh my gosh, this actually tastes good and it's good for my body. And you never go back. Now, some people, they fall back a little bit, but you never fall back to where you were.
Yes, that's exactly right.
You never fall that far.
Yes,
because they love how they feel. Growth happens through, you know, doing things that are uncomfortable, putting yourself in a place, like understanding there's a reason behind it, but that's where growth comes. And so you do have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations in order to grow. And then you find, oh, I guess it wasn't that hard. Anyway, you know, like you just learn, and I don't know, I just feel like we kind of stopped growing. Because we're too comfortable.
That's, you know, renovating the soul, that's exactly what it's about. Growing, evolving, not staying in these places where you've either outgrown but never realized it, or just like you said, pushing yourself out of these comfort zones. And so if you had to describe what functional health does for the body using like a renovation or construction metaphor, what would you say? And what does the work actually look like from the inside?
I'm no contractor, so I'm keep this real basic. But it is. It's just, you know, you get the crack in the wall, and you can have someone come and patch it up and repaint it. And to me, that's like when you go to your doctor with high blood pressure and they give you a blood pressure medication. You know, you're patching it up. A functional medicine viewpoint is going to be like a whole home inspection. And so you're going to come in, and that person's going to look at the foundation. You're going to look at all of the systems that are important for that home's integrity, right? So you're going to look at the electrical and the plumbing, and you're going to look at everything. And not only are you going to find the reason the blood pressure's high, but you're also going to find some other things that we're brewing. You know, you're going to prevent problems before it becomes a big deal. I mean, I'm sure that you already understood that to be the correlation between the two, right?
But I love it. I love hearing it too. I love visualizing that and making that practical for people to say like, oh yeah, I wouldn't want to live in a broken home that's about to shatter on me. So why would I want to live in a broken body? Like,
no, we just put up with so much with our bodies.
Well, it's just so interesting how much you're affected by what is happening and what you're seeing. And I think to sum this up, and kind of the point is, to pay attention
Yeah.
and to not ignore that and to not pass it off and say, well, we're all going through it, or it's normal, or that's just how my body responds. Instead of saying that and saying, you know what, I need to look at why is this happening? What's the root? Let's peel back the layers. Like you said, let's not just patch up the cracks anymore, but let's really do the preventive work, because you can. I think that's what's amazing, that you can.
And I do think sometimes people fall back to, it's in my genes. But what we now know through the science of epigenetics, that we have control over our gene expression. A lot of people are doing genetic testing and or we see the health conditions that our parents have and our grandparents. We know what potentially is in our future. But, the reality now, we know that genetic expression has everything to do with the environment that your body's in. What environment are those genes swimming in?
Yeah.
And so if you have a lot of inflammation and you have a lot of oxidative stress, which comes with all the bad things, being sedentary, not sleeping, lack of nutrients, all of those things, you're going to increase the expression of negative gene traits. But if you can calm down the inflammation and calm down the oxidative stress, you increase the expression of positive genetic traits like further lowering of inflammation. You can prevent genetic expression. And so you have more control than you think.
Yeah.
It's not just, I got the diabetes, my dad had it. It was inevitable, because that's not the case.
Yeah.
It's the environment that our body is in that's creating these negative outcomes.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. We do have more control than we think.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, if someone wants to find you, could you tell them your website?
So my website is Functional Pharmacist Northwest, so NW.com. And you can email me. And if you're interested in coming to one of my talks, I do post on my website when my talks are going to be. The next one is June 28th. I usually do them on a Sunday.
Okay.
It's at 1 p.m. And I give my talks at Natural Grocers on the east side, because they have a classroom at the front of their store. At this point, that's the only place I am giving talks.
Okay.
But once a month they're free, just to get another viewpoint about decreasing inflammation in the body.
Yeah. And those are in Vancouver, Washington.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
For anyone who's local. If someone watching this is not local, are they allowed to participate in the class virtually, or?
So technically, the functional medicine certification is just an add-on to my license.
Okay.
My pharmacy license is valid in Washington and Oregon.
Okay.
And so those are the people that I am legally allowed to treat.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's a good answer to a question for people who may not be local. But I want to thank you so much, Shalli. This was absolutely amazing. You all make sure you go to her website, really follow up, do your own research, as I always encourage. Everything she's saying can be found. You can also read that book, Good Energy. If she has any resources for me, I'll be sure to include them down below. But you all, please, take everything she's saying, listen to it. You probably have to listen again, because there's just so much in there. And maybe if you guys love her so much and she'll be so gracious, she'll come back. But thank you. So that was all for us. And thank you so much for tuning in.